and welcome to the early summer edition of the National Center webinars. My name is Katie Mencarini, and I will be your facilitator. Today's webinar has been made possible by funding provided by the Federal Highway Administration. Before we get started, I have a couple of housekeeping things to go over. As usual, with the exception of our speakers, all of you are muted on the phones. This helps reduce our interruptions, but that doesn't mean we don't want to hear from you. We have time for questions and discussion with the presenters at the end. Please submit your questions using the chat function on the GoToWebinar window, or you can use the question window. I'll be monitoring them throughout the presentation and saving them for the end. If you have questions about other Safe Routes to School topics that aren't on today's webinar topic, please use the Ask a Question tool on the National Center's website. Details about using that tool are included in the reminder email you received earlier today and probably yesterday. If you're having any technical difficulties, you can email me at kmencarini@tooldesign.com. I'll be monitoring that as well during the webinar, and I will do the best that I can to help you out. And finally, this webinar will be recorded and uploaded to the National Center website later this month, so no need to take notes. Just enjoy the show, and we look forward to seeing your questions. And with that, I think we are ready to get started. Today's webinar is all about making do with what you have. We're calling this one Creating Positive Change with Temporary Infrastructure Improvements. As you probably already experienced, a lack of sidewalks and pedestrian-friendly crossings can be what stands in the way of walking to school, but construction projects can be expensive, and it can take a while before they're on the ground and ready to use. Temporary infrastructure improvements can bridge the gap from identified need to completed construction, and in some areas, they can even serve as long-term substitutes for an infrastructure project. Today we're going to hear from Joan Horton, Executive Director of the Development Authority in Clawson, Michigan. And when it became clear that pedestrian crossing islands were going to be too expensive to build right away, she came up with a creative approach to introduce the concept with temporary structures. So you should see how she did it later today and how the Clawson residents reacted to this test configuration. Then we'll hear from Jeannie Marsala, the Director of Safe Kids Clark County Coalition in Las Vegas, Nevada. She's found a way to set up temporary crossings for pedestrians and temporary barriers to keep drivers from making illegal U-turns. Here she came up with the idea and how it's part of the school's daily routine at arrival and dismissal times. After that, we'll open the floor for questions. Now first, we actually have a special treat from Nancy Pollin-Sufert. She's the Associate Director at the National Center for Safe Routes to School, and she has a new resource for parents, teachers, and anyone else looking to teach pedestrian safety lessons to kids in kindergarten all the way up to high school. So Nancy, I'm going to turn this over to you so you can tell us all about it. Nancy, go take it away.
Thanks. And hello, everybody. Let me just move this over here. There we go. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today. Before we turn it over to Joan and Jeannie, as Katie said, I want to let you know about a new resource that's available. While we're talking today about changes to the built environment, we all know that supporting safe pedestrian, bicycle, and driver behavior also contribute towards safe routes to school. So I want to tell you about a recently revised and now launched student pedestrian education that was done for Federal Highway Administration called Pedestrian Safer Journey. Working for one of our sister clearinghouses, the Pedestrian and Bicycle Information Center, which is also located at the UNC Highway Safety Research Center, just like the National Center for Safe Routes to School is, and with Tool Design Group, we've recently launched a website with resources that are now available to you. So this resource is intended for ages 5 to 18, and we know that throughout that age span, students could use pedestrian safety education, but certainly require different types of messages and behavioral guidance. So we created 3 5-minute videos. One is for ages 5 to 9, one for ages 10 to 14, and one for ages 15 to 18. Now, for those of you who are involved in pedestrian safety curriculum, rest assured, we are not proposing that we can teach it all in 5 minutes. Pedestrian Safer Journey is really meant to serve 2 purposes. One, to really serve as a conversation opener or a starter to thinking and talking about pedestrian safety, whether that's at home with a parent and child or in the classroom. And second, to augment more comprehensive pedestrian education skills and practice time. Each video and its accompanying reinforcement activity are provided in Spanish as well as English, and for ages 5 to 9 and 10 to 14, there's a quiz for students to take after they watch the video. For high school, for the ages 15 to 18, we created a discussion guide to facilitate students in relating what they saw in the video to their own lives. Each age group also includes an educator library to point educators towards comprehensive pedestrian safety education curricula that are available. We also include a link to resources for parents to support their children's development of pedestrian safety skills. Our development process included direction from an expert working group, which included a mix of parents and professionals from around the country that you see listed here, and we are indebted to them. They were key to the development. And to give you sort of a sense about the steps that were involved in the development very quickly, first we did a scan of pedestrian safety curriculum that were already out there to identify key learning objectives that might be appropriate to cover. And then after we did production and final review by our working group, we conducted usability testing with students, educators, parents, and pedestrian bicycle professionals to get their reactions, and then made improvements based on the input that we received. So what you see at pedbikeinfo.org/pedsaferjourney, just what's listed here that you see on your screen, is the fruit of that input and work. Next spring, we'll be releasing a companion set of videos for bike safety called Bike Safer Journey. And I'm happy to take questions at the end, or please feel free to email me. My contact information is right there on the slide, and the URL, of course, for Pedestrian Safer Journey. And on that, I want to pass it over to Joan.
Thank you. Thanks, Nancy, and thank you for everyone. Katie, do we have it? There.
Yep.
Okay, all set?
Yep, all set.
Okay, thanks. The screen changed there for a minute. So thank you, Nancy, and thank you, everybody, for being here today. I will share the experience that we had in our town, and hopefully that's some good information that, that you can use. Share from our trials and tribulations. First of all, I am the Executive Director of a Downtown Development Authority, so we're going to quickly run through the where, what, who, and why I am here, and what it is that we have in common. First of all, I'm in Clawson, Michigan, which is in southeast Michigan, a small bedroom community. We're a 2.2 square little mile community that is part of what is considered the metropolitan Detroit area. So we're small, but we have big attitude. I work in the downtown, which is the main intersection at 14 Mile and Main Street. I am the Executive Director of a Downtown Development Authority, and if you don't have DDAs in your state, we'll quickly use a few slides to explain a DDA. This was downtown early 1920s, a dirt intersection. The train tracks there ran down Main Street, and those took you to the downtown, which was Detroit. Come the 1940s, hustling, bustling little place. We had everything you needed for daily living you could find right in the downtown, and we had cars. Next comes the 1970s. This was one of those Department of Transportation practices that said, you know, we'll help you pave that road or repave that road, but you'll have to take out that pesky on-street parking because that really makes it difficult for traffic. Traffic will move better if you don't have that parking. And move they did right onto the mall. 1990s came, and not only were people going to the other new mall, but we'd made some real building changes by covering up some of that wonderful brick with vastly inferior products. And what you can't see in that window on the left is that's the toilet right in our main intersection. Nothing like truth in advertising. So this is why the Downtown Development Authority law was passed. Not for that particular toilet, I don't think, but downtowns everywhere were failing. So Michigan passed a law that said if the community will identify its core parcels, the parcels that make up their core downtown, that you can retain a portion of the tax revenue collected from those parcels, and those become the budget for your Downtown Development Authority. the caveat is that all that money must be spent for economic development within that district. So infrastructure, plans that help businesses, training, anything that helps the district revitalize, that's what the tax revenue must go for. And then I work for that board of directors. So things are looking up. Past 7 years, we've had a new streetscape. We added new brick pavers, lighting, plants, trees, and that spurred a lot of private growth. So people started fixing up their buildings. They added patios outside. We're seeing people downtown now. That building on the left of the screen is a brewing pub, and that was the one with the toilet and window. So we've come a long way. So, you know, what's the problem? We've got people downtown. That's great. What we haven't done is we haven't fixed the road. We added parking along it, but we haven't made it easy for people to cross that road. So we end up with a situation like this all over town. So here's our situation. Our nemesis is 14 Mile Road. It's a main arterial road, 5 lanes, 4 traffic lanes, a center turn lane, and it bisects the town. It bisects our downtown. On the right side of the screen, it connects with Interstate I-75. It's a main exit for I-75. On the left side, it connects to Woodward Avenue, which is State Road 1. This is going through the downtown, or going through town. These are the lights. They're half a mile apart. Driver behavior is we speed up to beat the next light. So it's not a real safe situation. Throughout the town, it is not so bad, but in the downtown, which is pretty much where the word Clawson is there, when you've got businesses on both sides of the street that you need to get to, one light really isn't working. So if you were kind of standing where that C is, you'd be standing right here. And what you're expected to do is, if you're on the left side of the road, is walk all the way down to where that traffic light is that you can see there on the end, cross the road, and come back. How many people do that? 0. This happens to be an intersection or the corner where the high school is on the left side, 1 block away. On the right side of the screen is an 11-story senior living. And we definitely need to do something to make it safer crossing. There. People still say, well, it's always been this way. Why do we need to change? Well, because for safety, we want to be proactive, not reactive. It always seems that it is that horrible accident that makes change. We want to be ahead of that. From an economic development standpoint, we want to be a drive-to, not drive-through. We have people that will travel an hour away to come to some of our unique shops here. But the thing is, they get back in the car and they leave again because there's not a convenient walking atmosphere. We know that there's a growing desire to walk and bike. We know that from our own community. We know it from the National Association of Realtors, who did a community preference study. People want communities that are safe. They want good schools, and they want to be able to walk and bike in their community. So what now? We know all that. What do? First of all, you get informed. Google can be your friend. You can find out so much on the internet now. Do your research. Find out what your options are. Before you start asking too many questions, do a little research on your own. It's no different than being an informed consumer. None of us practically buy anything anymore without looking up reviews, without finding out some information on our own. You've got to do the same thing here. And of course, when you want to try to fix it, you're going to hear, you can't do that. You're absolutely going to hear, no, you can't do that. You just have to get yourself a little bit informed. And then what we did is, after hearing you can't do that, then we decided on a new tack. We went back to the city and we said, you know what? We see a problem here. We see that there are shoppers, they're stuck in the middle of the road. We see the kids crossing from the high school and junior school at this one intersection. We always see the seniors standing in the middle of the road from the high-rise with their walkers, their electric carts. They're stuck in the middle of traffic. So do you agree there's a problem here? And we'd like to start exploring options. So would you be interested in hearing what we learn? Because what we knew we were going to start asking questions at first the county level, the regional level, the state level. We're going to ask some questions, and if it came back to people in the city that we were asking questions, the naysayers would say, oh, that's fine, they're asking questions, they're not going to get anywhere. The people in favor would say, oh, good, they're asking questions. But we didn't want it to be a surprise. Finally, we now have a plan here. I say finally like that was so quickly, like one slide worth. It actually took 3 years. But we have a plan, and the thing is that it's perfect for our town. It calls for pedestrian crossing islands, also called refuge islands, in that center turn lane so that people can cross 2 lanes, have a safe place to wait till that break in traffic or hit a pedestrian activated light and cross again. And it creates a downtown bike route and bike parking, so it calms traffic, resulting in those slower speeds. It makes traffic drivers aware of pedestrians and makes it safer. Our plan calls for 6 crossings throughout the downtown, 5 new ones, the one that was existing, the light there that at North Main, or at Main Street and 14 Mile we have. And then it calls for 5 other islands. They end up, we looked at behavior where people do cross, and it ended up being about every 500 feet, which is what a typical city block is. So it creates that rhythm and really a good alert to drivers. This is what one of the crossings would look like, again, if we were standing at where that C was in Clawson on the west side of town. And this is what it looks like now. And then another view is here. You've got a good, the purpley kind of area there is actually plantings or brickwork, something that will make it stand out. Plants, a light on there, that there are pedestrian activated lights, and you can see a much safer situation for pedestrians, as well as creating a gateway into the city and giving those drivers that clue, be aware there's people here. So Bike to School Day comes along. We have this great plan. We need to keep this plan in front of the public. Let them know what we're doing. It hasn't gone away. It's not on a shelf. We're still working on it. Actually, it's in for grants right now.
Time to get up.
So it gave us another opportunity to inform the community, and it was another project that we could collaborate with the school district. So bonus. We decided to work on 2 temporary crossings. The one on the left of the screen is where the high school, junior high school kids do cross. Up in the upper left-hand corner, you can see that green area. That's the field for the school, the athletic field. On the right side of the screen, the other crossing, there is a K-12 private school on one side of the road, and there is a daycare and pre-kindergarten school on the left side. So we chose those as the ones to use for Bike to School. What we did was come up with the idea of using temporary islands. In urban planning, they're called pop-ups. It's just a 3D representation and a trial of what's planned. It's no different than setting a stage. It's not permanent, but it just gives you the idea of what you're going to be doing, helps people visualize what you have in mind. A lot of people cannot see something on a plan, but you make it 3D and suddenly they get the idea. a similar thing as the holiday stores in the mall. They're an opportunity for people to try out when those little stores that pop up in the center are temporary stores that, like the Halloween places that take over a vacant building for 2 months. Low to no cost. And then we had to go and sell this idea to the city. Luckily, our city manager is totally in favor. One of the naysayers, we still do have them, said, oh no, that's an obstruction in the road. Not, I'm just getting used to the idea you're putting permanent obstructions in the road and now you want to do temporary ones. But we, again, having a city manager in favor was helpful, and he said, no, we're going to do it. In fact, he even offered the Department of Public Works to help us put our islands out, which is nice because normally it's a couple of volunteers and I schlepping anything around that we come up with. So this was a real bonus. So this was the morning, and these are our temporary islands. Very basic, but it did give people the idea. We used pallets. We painted the edges with curb painting, put grass on them, tried to do some landscaping, wanted to do some trees, but we were pushing the limit with that one on the temporary obstructions. So we kept the landscaping to a minimum, but people got the idea and they saw the signs. They were great. We had no kids, but it was still a success. How that happened is at the week prior, the private school decided they were not going to participate. They said, no, you know what? All of our kids are driven here. Well, they're driven there because they can't bike. They can't get to the school any other way. So parents and kids noticed. They're sitting at the cross street trying to pull out into traffic, and they see this island. The kids are reading the sign. We had one car full of kids yelling, Mom, stop, we have to go back. It's bike to school. Let's go get our bikes. So this mother actually went and got her bike. She came back and asked questions. So inform the community. It worked. She knows now where to get more information. She knows what's happening. She'll follow our website. It's perfect. We also learned that at the other intersection, the one by the junior high school location, wow, what a lot of traffic. We knew it had traffic, but until you've stood there for an hour at that time of day, you really don't get it, and we learned how many people turn there. They turn into the school, and if we are lucky enough to get these islands and get the money to do it, fingers crossed even now, that we're going to have to do some training ahead of time with those parents and make presentations at the school so that it's a positive thing when it happens. Bike to School overall was a big success. They had over 150 kids that biked to the 2 elementary schools. There's a school on either side of 14 Mile Road, so their trains ran parallel to 14 Mile Road. The bike patrol officers from the police department participated. The high school principals, the school superintendent, and the mayor all rode with the kids. They loved it. It was the first time this had been done in Clawson, and they'll be doing it again. It was great. In the future, for pop-up islands, we're looking at doing a Bike Clawson Day this year. Again, create that awareness, get those islands out there, get people talking. We'll maybe do some sort of scavenger hunt to promote it, hide bike parts throughout businesses in the downtown. If you can find them all, you can enter to win a bike. Next year, hopefully we will have permanent islands in place, or at least started. But we will do something for Bike to School Day, like take a temporary location, a storefront, and create a pop-up bike store, a temporary bike store. Come in, get your bike fixed up, buy a bike, or get yours repaired, get ready for the big day. Our tips, if you're planning on doing anything with infrastructure, is really you've got to get informed. There are so many resources available to you, webinars, seminars. I went to Safe Routes to School seminars. I've gone to biking things. If you start getting on the list, start finding out where those things are taking place. So many of them are low cost to no cost. The thing is, you'll meet other people, and they're going to be like-minded people. So when you're looking for that great consultant, you may meet them at one of these places. And you've got to understand traffic engineers, because that you can't do that is often something from a traffic engineer, because traffic engineers move traffic. Those obstructions we're talking about, those safe islands in the road, a traffic engineer looks at those and says, those are obstacles to traffic. The street light, we had a tough time getting them to agree to let us put a street light on the island. For safety, you want it lit. Traffic engineer says that's a hard obstacle for a car to hit. Whereas we might look at it and say, yes, well, I would rather have a car hit a hard obstacle as opposed to, the pedestrian, the soft obstacle. But seek assistance and guidance from your local authority, whether it's your city. We went city, we went county, regional government, and state. And then, of course, there are federal resources. We also look at who else benefits. In our case, it was the downtown benefits for the businesses benefit from an economic development standpoint, the school benefits from a school crossing standpoint, the seniors benefit especially on the one end at the high rise. Overall, who benefits from this? Because it's much easier to sell if you can identify all the other people and take a real holistic approach to it. You also want to identify your other stakeholders and find partners. Get other people with you. And again, it's find that great consultant, which you'll be able to do. You'll recognize one if you're a little bit informed already. There are many, many websites available to you. These pretty much will gather everything for you in one location. Federal Highway Administration, so much information on there. Get on their email address. They'll send you webinars. They'll send you new reports. You'll be up to date on everything that's happening. Context-sensitive solutions is another resource. That is the idea behind that is that a road should reflect the area that it's traveling through. So if it's traveling through a downtown, it should look one way. If it's traveling through a school district, it should look another way. Smart Growth America, another good source, and then National Complete Streets Coalition. Another partner is the American Public Health, the Pedestrian and Bike Information Center, which is pedbikeinfo.org, and the National Center for Bicycling and Walking. If you start looking through those, you will find more than you need, but you might find just exactly what you do need. And then there is the site that Nancy just mentioned, which is new, and that is the Pedestrian Safer Journey. If you take away nothing else from this, before you start doing anything that has to do with traffic, you do need to understand how a traffic engineer thinks. So you're going to have to, if you'll just Google Confessions of a Recovering Engineer, you will find this article, and it will be eye-opening. And it just, again, lets you know how they think so that you know how to prepare your attack. So I thank you for letting me talk today. If you ever have any questions, I'd be happy to share our experience with you. So thank you very much.
Great
Back
job,
to you,
John.
Katie.
Thank you. All right, Jeannie, I'm going to move it right on you, and we'll go to you so then we can get to question and answer at the end. All right, Jeannie, it's coming right now. There we go. We see you, Jeannie.
Okay, I'm not getting anything yet.
That's okay. Oh, you've actually already accepted. I can see you.
Let's see here. My presentation isn't showing, though.
Oh, yeah. No, it's okay. Once you get to it, we'll We could go. If you need me to run it for you, I'm happy to do that. You just let me know.
Oh, okay. I was thinking that that's what we were doing, but I can get it. It's on my desktop. Sorry.
Okay, no, it's no problem. And everybody who's been participating in the back, thank you so much for sending your questions. I'm excited to compile them at the end. You guys are asking some really good ones. All right. Actually, I'm going to ask one. Joan, do you mind if I ask one of you right now? All right. So, Joan, someone asked, it was actually Jennifer Weiss, said, what was required at the city level to approve those median islands? You mentioned that you got the city manager on board, but did it require anything official, or was it just thumbs up, go ahead? Well, what did you guys have to do?
To approve the temporary ones?
Yeah.
Yeah, our city manager approved them. And that's our form of government, so he's our highest official, and he gave the approval.
Oh, great.
We did have to coordinate it with the other departments, the police department and the Department of Public Works.
Neat. All right, it looks like we have Jeannie, so I'm going to pass it over to you, and then we'll conclude with questions at the end. You ready to go, Jenny?
Yep, I'm ready.
All right, go for it.
Okay, so my name is Jeannie Marsala. I'm a registered nurse at Sunrise Children's Hospital in Las Vegas, Nevada. And we are the lead organization for Safe Kids Clark County here in Las Vegas. By profession, as I said, I'm an RN, and so we are located in the Trauma Services Department of our hospital. Now, why isn't this advancing? I'm frozen for some reason. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, I think we're moving now. So a lot of people don't know how big Las Vegas is or realize because they think we're just a tourist town, but we actually have 1.5 million residents. So besides our tourists that come into us, we have just 1.5 million people living here. We are 5th in the nation for pedestrian deaths. So it's a huge problem here. So how this came about is one of my very good friends who is a school nurse at an elementary school and a middle school here called one day and said, we have a huge pedestrian safety problem before and after school. Somebody's going to get hit by a car here, and I just need you to come out and help and see if there's anything you can do. Because as the school nurse, she was just so concerned about the safety of her children and also worried that she would have to be the first responder, obviously, if, God forbid, something happened. So the problem was that she had terrible pedestrian safety issues before and after school and poor traffic control. That's really slow to advance. I don't know why it's not doing that. There we go. I don't know why it's super slow to advance. So we went out to the school, and it was a partnership, actually, initially starting between Safe Kids Clark County, Sunrise Children's Hospital, our lead organization, and Roseman University School of Nursing. We have nursing students that rotate through us, through the hospital, through trauma services and Safe Kids, so that nurses can get a feel in injury prevention and how to work in the community to help with injury prevention, which is the main goal of Safe Kids and also of trauma services is to do injury prevention. That's my job with the hospital. When we went out to the school, we also engaged the school staff, and then we also, after developing a plan, contacted the Clark County School District Safe Routes to School Coordinator, the Department of Public Works, and FedEx, which is a national partner of Safe Kids on pedestrian safety. So the school that they called us on, we've showed a picture of here. It is called Lois and Jerry Tarkanian Middle School. And what the main issue with this school, as you can see down here, is that the opposite side of the school is completely undeveloped. So what happened is there is absolutely no crosswalks, as you can see, and there's absolutely no sidewalks along here at all. So what happens at the beginning in the morning is that all the parents are pulling in here and parking in this desert area, and we have mass amount of children crossing, mid-block crossing all over the place here. And at the same time, we had cars making U-turns, which I'll show you the numbers, as the children were crossing, were mid-block crossing. So in our pre-intervention observational study, again, we found no designated crosswalks, the land undeveloped. And during morning drop-off, 251 U-turns were made in a 30-minute time period. And while those 250 U-turns were going on, we had 226 kids mid-block crossing. So they were literally jumping out of the way of cars that were making U-turns, almost hitting these kids. And I could see why my friend was so concerned. During afternoon pickup, we had 83 U-turns in the school zone and 107 kids mid-block crossing. And we had 56 cars parked in the desert area, which, if it will let me go back, if you remember that desert area, they were encouraging their kids to mid-block cross. Let's see if it's going to let us advance. There we go. So during our pre-intervention, we called Public Works to see what could be done about no crosswalks. We researched the Nevada law. When we called Public Works, what we found out is that it would be a very, very long time before sidewalks or crosswalks would be in, because there was no plans to develop that land across the street. And so we knew we had to do something temporarily, because our long-term solution or permanent solution was a long time away. So then we researched the Nevada law to see, was it against the law in Nevada to make U-turns in the school zone? We found out that it wasn't, but we actually know in reality the law is a deterrent, but if the police aren't around, parents are still going to make those U-turns in front of the school, and it's still going to put the kids at jeopardy. So we met with the school staff, including the principal, the school nurse, the ground monitors, because they're the ones that are out in the morning seeing the kids dropped off, and in the afternoon seeing the kids picked up. So we wanted to get their input. And my school nurse friend suggested that we meet with the in this school, the 8th grade leadership kids, and to get their input on what they thought would help change the behavior of the kids. So then we came up with our plan. We developed a plan. During our intervention, what our plan consisted of was, our intervention period was 3 weeks. We did education before and after school, one by one, to parents, car by car. So we were lucky with this school, the student nurse group and the school nurse. We were lucky to have a team of about 10 every single day. We created a flyer, and we handed it out to the parents, and we headed the flyer, "For the safety of your children, we are changing the traffic plan at this school." And one by one, to the parents that were there before school and after school, we educated them car by car so they would understand why we were doing this. We also sent flyers home with every single student at the school, so in case their parent wasn't there that particular day. We created a video that was produced using the leadership student kids. The video was shown school-wide, and also during this 3-week intervention period, telephone messages were sent home made by the principal that stated, again, "For the safety of your children, we are changing the traffic pattern." We hung banners up at the school. We incorporated the Safe Routes to School messaging, which was basically, we want to encourage kids to walk and bike to school. So even if you want to drive your kids to school, we really suggest that you park further away and let the kids walk to decrease the traffic around the school. And then most importantly, we changed the traffic pattern. And how we did that was like this. One of the student nurses, as we were watching one day, trying to figure out a plan, and we had already called Public Works, and we were discouraged because we knew that over here on this side we couldn't get any sidewalks. One of the student nurses says, why don't we just put up cones and they can't make U-turns? And I've been doing this job for 18 years, and so I was like, wow, why didn't I think of that? So we did. We purchased 100 cones, and we put them all the way up here. And then because there was no designated crosswalks, we created our own. Here's another picture of the cones. And you can see one of our designated crossing areas we created right down here. We made sure that it was at the corner so kids would be learning to cross at the corner. And one on the other end, which is here. So this was our designated crossing area. Now these cones look like they're close together, but actually they're not. There's enough room for cars to drive in between these cones. So instead of the kids mid-block crossing, they now had 2 designated crossing areas only. And the parents, the cones were all the way down here from this designated area to the other designated area. So the parents were not allowed to make U-turns in the designated crossing areas. We also tried to incorporate bike safety, so we were there teaching the kids to actually get off their bikes, cross in the designated area, and of course we were encouraging them to wear helmets as well. And you can see where they we're crossing now, and you can see the desert on the other side. This is one of the banners that we used. We wanted to come up with just 4 key messages, and they were based on what we found in our pre-intervention observational study. So the biggest problems were the U-turns. There were the kids mid-block crossing. There were, of course, the parents double parking and speeding as well. And the other thing that happened that we didn't even think would happen is based on putting up the cones, traffic slowed down. We timed how long it would take to put these cones up because we knew that might be an issue with the school because we wanted to create a plan that they could carry on once we were gone and at the end of our 3 weeks. So very, very important to time whatever you're doing so the school knows how long it takes. And with just one person putting out those cones on a cart, and this was just a roll-away cart that we donated to the school as well, it only took 9 minutes. They now do it on a cart, because it's a middle school, they actually have like a little golf cart. It takes them about 4 minutes to put those cones out. What we found in our NRS in the state of Nevada was not only did we not have a no U-turn in a school zone law, but what we did have, which was beneficial, was it said that schools were allowed to put up temporary traffic devices during school hours. So they can keep those cones up all day. The school monitor puts them up in the morning, early before there's any traffic, so there's not an issue of it being, a safety concern at this particular school. Because there isn't anybody coming that early in the morning. And we have done it at 5 other schools now as well, and same thing. If they get it set up early, as soon as the janitors or the school monitors come in the morning, they're not at risk. And then they take them down at the end of the day when all the cars have cleared out, which ironically, after school, that only takes about 17 minutes, and it's like a ghost town. And that's how it's been at all 5 of our schools. And then they put them up in the morning. As soon as they get there, it's the first thing that they do. So that's usually a good hour before school starts, so there isn't any traffic. Those were our key messages at the first school. So in our post-intervention study, we found it was highly successful. We had 0 U-turns in the school zone after school. And before school, we had 1 mid-block crosser, and after school, we had 2 mid-block crossers. And in both cases, the parents prompted the kids. And what I made sure that we did on our post-intervention study is we had absolutely no interaction with the kids, so we let them do whatever they were going to do. So for 3 weeks, every single day prior to the post-intervention, we stood outside of the school. You need to cross at the corners, cross here. We all had our T-shirts on. We told the kids who were on bikes, please get off, cross in the designated areas. We spoke to the parents. Parents, please make sure your kids are crossing in the designated areas only. But on the post-intervention study, our lips were sealed. We didn't say a word to the kids. So we only had 1 mid-block crosser before school and only 2 mid-block crossers after school. And again, both cases, the parents were encouraging them to do it. So this is a picture of where we put the designated crossing areas. I have a little cone here, but the cones went all the way down this street here. And then we had the designated crossing areas, or as we call it, our makeshift crosswalks. Designated crossing areas. Oh, sorry, on this end it was actually here because we wanted the kids to stay on the sidewalk to walk into the school, which the entrance is here. And on this side, the designated area was here. So again, they crossed, got on the sidewalk, and walked directly into school. The good news was Public Works observed our plan during the intervention stage, and that was totally due to the principal who was on it making the phone calls saying we need some help out here. And this temporary structure proved to Public Works that the temporary plan worked, and therefore a permanent plan would work. So instead of them spending a whole bunch of money creating something without knowing whether it would work or not, what we showed them with the cones is that it was successful and it would work. And we shared our statistics with the principal so that the principal could also use those statistics to work with Public Works. We just did this last year, and at around this, actually May of last year, we found when school started, Public Works over the summertime had already put up new signage that said no U-turns. And they are working on putting up temporary, no, sorry, not temporary, lightweight flags that would go all the way down where our cones were so that parents cannot make U-turns just in that area. And since then, word has gotten out and 5 other schools have been done. It has cost us about $1,000 per school as a budget, so it's not terrible, but when you're a poor little nonprofit like most of the Safe Kids are, it can be expensive. So we thank FedEx, who's doing our banners for us, and they may do our cones for us. And also, I just presented this same presentation to, or at the Safe Kids Worldwide conference that I just got back from yesterday. And FedEx was actually in the room when I presented, and they are very interested in helping Safe Kids coalitions across the nation do this. And for those of you that don't know, Safe Kids Worldwide is actually, there are 600 coalitions across the nation, and we are also in 23 other countries now. But you can go to the safekids.org website and find the coalition that's nearest to you, and they are great partners for you to have as a Safe Routes to School coordinator, because you know, you're singing to the choir by meeting with the Safe Kids people, so they're a great resource for you to have. And that's it.
Great job, Jeannie.
Thank you so much. This is great. And thank you, Joan. We have a bunch of questions to get to, so I'm going to launch right into them so that we can get to as many as possible. I see we have about 9 minutes or so left. Joan, I'm going to start with you, give Jeannie a little break. Joan, what is the average annual daily traffic on 14 Mile Road, or about how many cars you experience on that during the day? People were asking how busy it is.
A day.
Sorry, Joan, I had you muted. Can you say that one more time?
25,000.
25,000 pages. All right. And then we also had another comment that I think is worth mentioning, that not all engineers are anti-pedestrian. Have you, Joan, been able to find people that seem to understand how to accommodate pedestrian safety needs and work with you?
Absolutely, and that's part of what in doing our research, that phase and going to seminars and meeting people. That is how we found the person who did our plan, which was somebody who traffic engineers are learning differently. The young ones are learning differently. It is a slow change, but as a traffic engineer had told me when we first started out, look, I move traffic, and I'm an old traffic engineer. I understand what you're trying to do, but you know that's not what I do. So, and they still do, even though we got our plan done. We sent it to the city's consultant, traffic engineering firm, and they sent it back and marked up all of the ways that it affected traffic. There was no mention in there of, wow, this makes it safer for pedestrians. Everything in it was, this obstructs a turn, this makes it difficult, this makes it difficult. So we had to sit down with them and the city and say, okay, you've marked it up for traffic. Now, understanding that we are going to do this, we'd like to put in some language that says, this is safer for pedestrians, this is how it affects traffic. And we changed the language a bit.
Oh.
So it just took a little understanding of where he was coming from. His things were objection. You know, you're putting obstacles in the road. Yes, we are. But the Federal Highway Administration says that these are proven safety countermeasures. So let's start from that aspect and then tailor the wording. And then you can say that it affects cars.
Mm-hmm. I have another question for Jeannie. Jeannie, who is crossing the kids at your school? It looks like there may be some parent volunteers, or did you have crossing guards before? Who is helping children get across the street?
Actually, at that particular school, and actually at all 5 of our schools that we have done, the main problem was there were no crossing guards in the vicinity of the school, because the way that so the kids are crossing themselves. So the great thing about that is we are teaching them in that 3-week period, which I really think that 3-week period is important. And yes, it's not easy to get volunteers to be there 3 weeks every single day before school and after school. However, it's such a short time period that it is actually a good time for people to volunteer. But we created a habit. And now those kids are crossing on their own.
Great.
So that was the biggest problem, was there were no crossing guards in that area. I don't know how it works in other states, but here in Nevada or Las Vegas, the way that our crossing guards are assigned is where there is the most traffic coming through on a street. So we've done many schools, just like the picture that you created here, which is great that you have on the questions and answers picture. This looks very similar to what we've done at some of the other schools that were more in a neighborhood like you have here. And the crossing guards were probably a mile away, because the crossing guards for that particular school were put on the super busy street and not right in front of the school.
Okay. Good point. I have a question now for both of you. What do you, or have you experienced the situation where you have a great idea and you want to improve safety around schools, but a principal isn't on board? And if so, what have you done to get those people on board with you?
Well, yeah, that happens a lot, and it's frustrating. And, I think Joan did a really good job on saying, people are going to tell you no, and people are going to tell you you can't do it. And we had people come to the school and say, I work for Public Works, and you can't do this. You can't put things up in the road. And so we, in our flyer, had a copy of the NRS. We did one school. It was very frustrating. We were there for 3 weeks. We did all of our resources and everything, and at the end of the 3 weeks, the principal said, you know, we've decided that we're not going to do this past the time of you being here. And actually, let me back up by telling you, we did it for that school before Christmas. They asked us to come back and reinforce it after Christmas break, which we did. So we spent 6 weeks there, 3 weeks before Christmas break, 3 weeks after to reinforce the change. And at the end of our 6 weeks there, the principal said, we've decided we're not going to do this without you. Very, very, very frustrating. So I would suggest that when that happens, you try to go to the PTA. Your school nurse is a great resource for you because it's a safety issue. And so if you have her in your corner and she's supposed to be the health expert at that school, you can use her or him as your liaison. The other thing that really benefits me coming in, not only being the director of Safe Kids, but being from a children's hospital and being from trauma services, you know, our department, I mean, my title at the hospital is Injury Prevention Coordinator for Sunrise Trauma Services. So when you have a trauma nurse, too, coming in and saying this is an issue, and that's what I wanted to tell you all, too, is every trauma center has to have a designated injury prevention coordinator, and our job is to do injury prevention in the community. That is part of our job. That's in our job description. So your injury prevention coordinators at your trauma centers are great resources too. And sometimes just having that expertise in their background is enough to turn around that principal. Because, you know, you say a trauma is going to happen here. What are you going to do if a trauma happens here? And I have to be sometimes pretty blunt. That one particular principal, we couldn't get her to change her mind. Now, ironically, the school next door to her is another school that we did, and there have been permanent traffic safety changes at that school right next door to her. So I'm hoping in time she'll come around, because her school is chaotic in the morning, and the other school is completely calm, and they're literally right next door to each other.
Joan, have you had any similar experiences?
We don't have a school right in our district, so other than dealing with the private school, which didn't want to participate in the bike to school day because, you know, our kids don't bike. We're going to have to work a little harder on that next year, and probably work at getting the residents in the neighborhood, the kids who go there, and interested, which they were, in biking to school and walking. So we will work mostly with the residents and then try to get through to the principal again.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you both for being here and preparing these presentations and answering the questions. This has been a huge help, and I've been getting a lot of great feedback from our participants, so thank you both for coming. And for the rest of you, we are going to be uploading this recording onto the website under training and webinars later this month, so check on back, and we thank you for joining us. Have a good afternoon. Bye.
Thank you.